So, good morning. Thank you for all of your generosity for the Haiti mission effort. I'm going to ask for your indulgence. Last Sunday morning when Mark said, will you do the Haiti mission report next week? I said, okay. I had Thursday morning free until about 1 o'clock, and then I was off Friday, so I was going to have some fancy slides and some videos. And then the first thing I heard when I walked into Bloomingdale's Sunday morning was that my manager's husband had died of what they thought was a heart attack. So that sort of put the week into turmoil. And so all of that vacant time I had went away, but not to worry, because Mark Niles went on the trip with us, and he was going to be here, and I was going to speak for 5 minutes, give you some background information, and then he was going to get up. So at about 6:45 this morning, he sent me an email. He's not going to be here. So if at some point in time I start to sound like a babbling idiot, it is not your imagination. Okay. So I went through the whole song and dance last year about I have progressive lenses, so I cannot read that. But there's a picture of a ram in the bush. And as you all know, we had some challenges this year with the trip to Haiti. Am I being heard? Yeah, okay. We had some challenges. Jared, I almost said Jason, but Jared let us know in February that because of some logistical problems with Mission Lazarus, we needed either 10 people or move the trip to July. So the elders were not willing to move the trip to July, understandably so. We already have a mission trip in July that's in the midst of camp, and then that's also vacations. So you didn't need a second trip. So, okay, that's Jared. I will work on recruiting 10 people. In the meantime, and not knowing if it was going to be possible or not, all things are possible, but sometimes God put us on a different path. So earlier in February, Mark Niles had been to Haiti with a group called Hope for Haiti's Children on a mission trip, a medical mission trip. And he was giving me feedback. So as I was working to recruit the 10 people, I was also researching this group, Hope for Haiti's Children, had a couple of meetings with the elders, Jason and I. And so that was sort of in our back pocket, and that proved to be our ram in the bush. So no scripture reading here, but there is a principle here that God always make a way. And it did sort of reinforce my commitment to Haiti, because I had started to think, well, maybe it's time that we don't do that anymore. But it's a great work there, and even though we're a smaller congregation, it still is on my heart to go to Haiti. And I think it's on the heart of some other people's too, because on the hearts of other people, because we definitely received a lot of funds for the trip. So this is just, I wanted to start off just showing you a picture of the area where we were. Tamazo, Haiti is a little bit northeast Port-au-Prince, in a very rural area. And this is just the kids lining up for school, I believe. Okay, so Hope for Haiti's Children, who are they? And again, I can't read that, so I'm gonna let you read it. But basically, Hope for Haiti's Children is a NGO, non-governmental organization, we call them nonprofits, sponsored by a Church of Christ in Cincinnati, Ohio. And they have been going to Haiti since 1995. It started off as the brainchild of a guy by the name of Ken Beaver. And over the years, they have grown to the point that they actually have 10 Christian schools in Haiti that are meeting on church sites. They have 2 orphanages, the one that we worked at in Tamazo, which has 12 children, and then they have one in Port-au-Prince that houses 87. So for a very long time, Ken says that even though he was in Haiti, he actually fought the idea of having an orphanage because it disrupts the community. What happens in Haiti is that because of 80% of the people do live in poverty, a lot of parents, because they recognize that their child will be fed 3 meals a day and receive an education. If they are in an orphanage, they actually take their children to orphanages. So he did not want to disrupt the community, so he didn't really start working with orphanages until after the 2010 earthquake, where now you really have people who are orphan indeed, kids who lost both parents. So that's when they really started to work in the orphanage area, and they've done a lot of work. They also have a Christian youth camp that meets during the summer, and it's very similar to the setup at Camp Manatani. I think there are 180 kids that attend that camp. And so if I left off something, you can read the rest of it. But it's a very impressive organization that's supported by the Churches of Christ in Cincinnati. Oh, and they also have a U.S. board, and they have a Haitian board of directors. And that's actually the kind of model, business model, if you will, that you want to have when you're an NGO and you're a Christian NGO anyway, and you're working in other areas. You want to teach people how to fish rather than just continually to give them fish. So at any point in time, if the U.S. board of directors had to step out of the picture, this still would be a thriving organization in Haiti. So there's a team, myself, Mark Niles, Harry Piparakas, and Ayo. And during the recruitment stage, I called a couple of friends and said, hey, do you want to go to Haiti with me? And one said, no, I don't have a passport. My husband doesn't have a passport, but why don't you call Deborah? And Deborah was a school teacher, a retired school teacher, taught first and second grade for a number of years. And when I asked her, she said, absolutely, I want to go. And that was it. She started preparing to go and was calling me every day telling me about how excited she was. I said, okay, you haven't been there yet. You think this is not a vacation. She said, oh, I'm going to Haiti, I'm going to Haiti. I was like, okay, this is not sun and beach. This is going to be a bit of hard work. So our objective was to paint 2 classrooms, front and back. We actually did a little bit more than that, and to conduct Vacation Bible School for about 200 children. So there's the Haitian staff that's in front of the staff house or the guest house. It amazes me how much work Sonel did when we were going to Cap Haitian, because there's a team of about 4 or 5 people on this trip that did everything that Sonel did on our previous trips. But that's the coordinator of the guest quarters. That's the, you're looking at 2 of the women who actually are the, I guess you would call them house moms for the orphans. And they kept calling them orphans, and we decided we're not going to call them orphans, we're going to call them Tamazo's children. So I'm going to try to stick to that and not refer to them as orphans, because although they may not have their biological parents, they do have people that are caring for them, and they are in a very nurturing environment thanks to the support of churches and other organizations. That's also our security people, our translators. We had 2 translators every day. And then we actually had somebody who was always with us, even though the grounds are fairly compact there in Haiti, in Tamazo. We had the school very close to the guest house, which was very close to the dormitory where Tamazo's children live. So again, that's the guest house, and I think that's Harry. After a hard day's work, we're dragging up to the front door. Those are the Tamazo's children. This location, as I said, there are 12 children, and they are taken care of by donations that come in from various people throughout the Churches of Christ and others. So again, that's just the picture on the first day that we were there. We actually worshiped with the congregation. We had an Easter egg hunt. We actually had an Easter egg hunt every day because We would go in and we would do the work, then we would break for Vacation Bible School for 2 hours, and then we would come back and continue working on the building. This is the year that we go to Haiti every year, so when I planned the trip, we had no idea that it was actually Easter week. So we did tell the Easter story or the Holy Week story, as well as, like I said, we had Easter egg hunt. So I just had, this little girl was so animated, and one of the activities that we did was we had them draw pictures on the, well, Fran would have a fit if people drew pictures up here, so don't let your kids do that. But front of the church, one of the activities was that we gave them chalk so that they could draw. And we also started off the day by tracing each of the children's handprints, and each of us brought back one of those posters. So I plan to have that laminated, and maybe we can put it up somewhere around here, because we told them that we were taking a piece of them back to the United States of America. So I think the caption, can somebody tell me what the caption says? Pardon me? Yeah, things that make you go, No OSHA. This was not the picture of safety. That ladder is not resting on even ground. But I've never been to Haiti where everything was perfect. So we kind of make do with what we have, and that's Mark Niles, I believe, standing. No, that's Harry and Ayo. Ayo holding the ladder while Harry holding the ladder while Ayo is painting there. And I'm going to have to look. So Harry actually preached Sunday morning. We had the Haitian preacher to preach, and then Harry got up and told a brief story, and they were very appreciative of that. This is also Sunday morning. We had Bible class with the younger kids, and we're making palm fronds in an effort to talk about the Sunday that Jesus came into Jerusalem on the donkey. This is where we stayed. This is where we spent most of our time when we weren't at the work site. This kitchen table or dining room table, whatever you would want to call it, is where we had our devotions. It's where we ate our meals, and it's also where we planned for the week's activities. And again, this is the side of the building that we had to paint. This is equivalent to 2 classrooms, and we also had to paint the back of this, and you'll see a picture of that, and then we had to come inside and paint as well. Those windows, we actually had to get in with a brush and just, it's very tedious work, get in and paint those windows as well. The fact that we painted these 2 classrooms means that now, rather than going from 1st to 4th grade, when school starts next year, they'll actually be able to go up to 6th grade. So that's hand clapping, because they just... Now, I put this picture in here because this is the easiest work I've ever done when I went to Haiti. Now, Harry and Ayo was probably like, yeah, that's what you say, you weren't standing outside in the sun. But this is a picture, I believe, from 2013, when we actually had and those of you who've gone to Haiti and gone to Honduras, you know, you're in Mexico, you know, you make the mortar, you do everything. So I thought, yeah, this was pretty easy in comparison to some of the work that we've done previously. So again, that's that side of the building finished, thanks to Ayo, Harry, and Mark, because I painted mainly inside. And then that is Harry putting the lid on the paint. We are pretty much finished with that part of the job. Now, this is a solar oven. I thought this was really interesting, and it's just an example of how we're bringing technology, or Haiti is taking advantage of technology. This is on the campus there. And what's going to happen is that eventually they will have a bakery at this site, and this is how they will bake the bread. You can't really depend on, I mean, oftentimes you're off the grid in terms of electricity, so by relying on the solar, energy, you will be able to continue to bake and cook. And I think that's a really great idea. One of the things that they will do is they will open the bakery. It will give the people of the village closer proximity to a food source. Sometimes not only do you not have the money, sometimes you don't have the means to get to the food source. So at least they will be able to do this. And one of the other things that Hope for Haiti Children does is that they provide the community with 1,000 gallons of water. And I had the opportunity to revisit just how much we take for granted here, because after the first day of painting, we went down to clean the brushes, and typical American, I am embarrassed to say, we let the water run while we were cleaning the brushes. And the next day when we went down there was no water. So we thought, well, we need to let them know that there's no water so that they could fix it. And we were informed that that's the community water, and we only give them 1,000 gallons a day. So then I really felt bad, and after then we were a little bit more judicious in how we consume the water there. This is the principal of the school. He's 25 years old. Pretty difficult to be a principal in the U.S. at age 25. But he was thrilled that we were there, so happy that we were actually taking time to not just teach the children, but play with the children with the different games that we played. Usually they come in and they play soccer, and that's it. But we played Duck, Duck, Goose. We had jump ropes. We had the chalk game. We played dodgeball. We engaged the children on many, many fronts, and the principal and the teachers and everybody was really, really thrilled that we did that. So when we were in Cap Haitian, we always had mangoes every day, mangoes on the trees, mangoes dropping out of the trees. As you will see later, this is very, very rocky soil, so you don't see a lot of mangoes, but you do see a lot of coconut trees. Lots of coconut trees. So we did have the opportunity to drink fresh coconut water. And let me tell you, it doesn't taste anything like what you buy in the cans and the cartons. Totally different taste, very refreshing. Put this in because the last time I was in Port-au-Prince, one of the things that happened on this trip is rather than going to Cap Haitian, we went back to Port-au-Prince, which I had not been to since 2013. My first trip to Haiti, 2012, Port-au-Prince, 2 years after the earthquake. This year, 2013, was when we built a house for the family there. And there were just tents all around, and there was, in some instances, sort of a stench in the air because people have been living in these tents furnished by the UN in 2013 for close to 3 years. So you look at that and you think, will there ever be any improvement here? Will there ever be any improvement in infrastructure? And yes. I can't describe, and I couldn't find an old picture of all of the rubble that existed in 2012. And this is not a residential area, grant you, but lots of improvements in the infrastructure inside of the city. I mean, the roads are still pretty bad outside of the city, but you can see newer buildings in Port-au-Prince. So all of these buildings were built since the earthquake. And you can kind of see a bit of a thriving economy. If you've been to developing countries, you sort of understand how that works. So it was a blessing to see this progress, and I do have to. So normally when we go on a mission trip, a significant amount of the money goes toward building materials. So paint is a lot cheaper than buying cement mix and all of the things that go into making cement. And the participants of the trip generally pay their entire expense unless somebody in the congregation says, I want you to use this to defray the cost of your trip. And we have that done frequently. This year, because we did not have the overhead, we will have some money left out of your very generous donations. And that money will go towards, right now I'm thinking it's really going to be $1,250, but I'm saying somewhere between $850 and $1,000 That money will go directly to Hope for Haiti's Children and will be used to pay for school supplies and teachers' salaries. Teachers are very much underpaid there, as they are here, but significantly underpaid there. So I looked at sponsoring a child. It costs $36 to sponsor a child, and that provides tuition, that provides 3 meals a week. Up until last week, they now have they've had a donor that has provided them with the funds that now will allow them to provide 1 meal 5 days a week for the kids. So it just didn't work out well for us to try to sponsor students unless we were going to do it on a continuous basis. But this was, from my perspective, the best way to use those funds that were left over. We won't sponsor a child or children, but you can use it in this manner. Okay, so I was going to bring up the other 3 people, but Mark is not here, so I'm going to run through his slides. This is the babbling idiot part, unless you think I've already sounded like a babbling idiot. But this is our first day going off to work. That's the building, what it looked like before we started to paint. I think this is every day when we walk from the guest house over to school where we were working. We had to walk over a lot of rocks, a lot of rocks. But also we had the donkeys and sometimes the pigs and the goats and a few sheep. Very short distance, but it amazes me how everybody's animals are just there, and for whatever the reason, they aren't worried about somebody taking their animals. And that impressed me, because everybody, I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people are hungry. If you own an animal, that's a source of potential wealth, but everybody's animals kind of just roam free and pretty much undisturbed. I don't know if that's a sunset or sunrise, but Mark put it in there, and I'm sure he put it in there for the beauty of the picture. And that's just us sitting there with the children. The first 2 days, we actually had an Easter egg hunt. But the way it works, kids kind of hang around after school, particularly when people are there. So by now, the older kids have figured out that there are going to be some Easter eggs with candy out here. And so it wasn't always the number of eggs that we put out there available for the kids to hunt. So we brought the Easter egg hunt inside and just sort of dropped them in their bags. And just some candid shots of some of the students there. They do have a uniform. The burgundy shirt that you see was actually, this shot was taken on Friday. And on Fridays, they don't have to wear the full uniform. So those shirts were donated by somebody who had been there to work for them. And this was supposed to have a video in it that you could hear the children as they sing at the beginning of the day. They sing how great their art in Creole, and then they sing the Haitian national anthem, and then they do the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm not even going to try to get that video to work. So more candy shots of the children. I think when I first spoke about Haiti, I mentioned how the mountains around have been deforested. That continues to be a problem. For 2 reasons. One, people want charcoal, and that's, charcoal is their primary cooking fuel for most of the people there. And then the other reason those mountains are bare is because Americans and Europeans have an insatiable thirst for mahogany wood, and mahogany wood grows on those mountains. So, not making any kind of public announcement here, but before you buy that mahogany, maybe think a little bit about, can I buy some other kind of wood? And same thing is happening in the Philippines as well. And so this ends my part of the presentation. Harry and Ayo will come up, and then the last one of them will say a prayer. Yep. Okay.
But you shall serve the Lord your God, and he will bless your bread and your water, and I will remove sickness from your midst. So that's the passage that I brought home from Haiti this year. Last year it was 2 Chronicles 7:14. So for me, it's kind of the same way that I feel going over there, because it's we think we're going out there to help those people, but they bless you with so much when you get back home. And this morning when I was driving to church, I was thinking that, you know, if I stand beside any one of these people and I compare myself with them, I find out that I'm more blessed. But even in all of my blessings, I still complain. But when you're over there, you don't hear a single complaint from any one of those people. When they're in church, they're singing loud and praising God. And you sitting down there with all your stuff, and you're thinking, okay, I have this problem. When I get back home, I have to deal with this, I have to deal with that. But you find out when you're over there that whatever your problem is, it's nothing compared to what they have. And they're still praising God, and they're still thankful for what they have. So for me, it's always a joy going over there, because being among those people and seeing the way they interact with each other, it's fun to see it. It's fun when you see the men and the women, even in the guest house, the way they interact with each other, very friendly, very jovial. And I always have the sense when it's Saturday that we have to come back. And I always have the sense, I wish it was next year already. I mean, I know sometimes I don't feel like coming back home, but I have to come back home. I have things to do back home, but I always look forward to going back over there. The walk over there is fun, even though it's like vacation. When you're leaving, it's like vacation, but once you get over there and you start working, it's fun. You enjoy yourself. You enjoy the kids. I mean, that's the one thing you enjoy the most is the kids. You know, they're always happy to see us and pulling your hand, saying high five, ready to play the games. And we introduced a new game to them this year, and they love it. They love it. And I'll say again, like I always say every year, if anybody has the opportunity, the chance to take one of this trip, you should avail yourself of it. Just try it one time, and it would fill you with so much joy when you come back home that, you know, you can't wait to go back over there. It's the best kind of trip to go on a mission trip. And you get to see not only people from our church, you get to see people from other churches, other congregations that have things that they do over there. But the country is much improved. I mean, I've never really worried about security anytime I'm over there. I mean, I actually went one of the interpreters into the town on Tuesday. We walked all the way into town, and I would say it's like any other small town in America except the road was bad. That's the only difference. You know, people doing their daily work. The police station is right there. The Catholic church is right there. There's like a stream. We went to the mountain. You can see water coming out of the mountains and people doing their daily things. It's a beautiful small town. And the people were very friendly. I mean, that's all I can say. You will enjoy the trip. If you ever get a chance to go, I would advise, take the chance. Take the chance. And I would like to thank the church. I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity every year that you guys give me to go on this trip. And I will be looking forward to next year. So thank you very much.
I like the part that Kim was saying that she might start babbling, and I thought, well, that's my style very much so. I thought about presenting maybe a little bit more coherent, organized speech, but then I thought, why start now? So just some random thoughts about what I experienced over the observations and things I felt how I was spiritually blessed. Just a caveat, I'm an outsider. I don't speak Haitian Creole, and I have limited exposure to Haitian culture, but having said that, I'll say the things that I did observe and see things. I was impressed by, how strong and resilient and resourceful the people are over in Haiti. The devastation that we saw there was in 2013, I think, was it? A lot of that is changed. You don't see as mentioned before, you don't see the tent cities that you did see. You don't see the rubble piled in the roads. The airport was rebuilt, but that's not. So there are a lot of things have changed and improved, but that's not to say that there's not a lot of problems. They have a laundry list of problems over there. I mean, you could go on and on about it. The environmental issues, clean water, sewage, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, it's a whole list of problems, and I can't even pretend to know how to address these issues or where to start on it, except maybe saying try to not look at everything at one time, just try to work on one thing at a time so you don't get overwhelmed. But what I find amazing that is these people with all these problems going on still keep on trucking on. They continue with their lives. Right? They have the strength and the resilience and resourcefulness to live in what we would consider a very difficult environment. This trip was somewhat different from the other ones, as mentioned by both Kim and Ayo. It was different in a couple ways. One is that the guest house was on the work site. So we, in the morning, got up, ate our breakfast, and just walked over to the work site. There was more of a Bible school emphasis this time than it had been in the past. Mark Donnell was the head on that. Every day we had some sort of Bible school. Lasted about 2 hours. We did a play basically on the death and resurrection of Christ, and then we played with the kids, and that was pretty good. That was pretty good. Haven't played with kids for a long while, so that was good. That was probably one of the more strenuous parts. It was physically less strenuous than the other experiences. Painting is less strenuous than carrying bricks and mixing cement, but and plus the fact that I stayed on the bottom of the ground while Io was the one who went up on the ladder, so that made it nicer. And one other significant difference, it was a higher level of interaction between us and the Haitian staff. They have a fairly large Haitian staff over there, and most of them spoke English. Some of the names, I remember them, we had Johnny Lane. I thought it sounded like a Hollywood name, but his name was Johnny Lane. He was an interpreter. We had another guy named Roulet. We were calling him Woolet all that week until we found out the last day was Roulet, but he's another interpreter, very good interpreters. Mary Shell was the person who oversaw the operations there. I believe Jean-Baptiste was the preacher. Silvio was our driver. And all these guys spoke English. There were others. Berlot was the principal. He did not speak English, but Mark Niles had a good time talking, swapping stories, trying to converse with him, because they're both heavily into education, as you can imagine. I hope we were an encouragement to them. They're very polite, very friendly, very open to us. Mark Niles made a point when he was leading the children's Bible studies, trying to point out to them that we had come a long ways to do these things, to paint on their school building and then to do these lessons. And the idea he was trying to impress on them is that, on these kids, that they mattered to us and they mattered to God. And I hope the adults got the same message and were encouraged by that. One thing that I don't think has changed from my previous trips, one of the things I was impressed by, or that gets impressed on my memory and my way of thinking is things, you are impressed, well, when you meet people, you see Haitians, you realize, they are real people. They're not just images on a TV or part of a news story of a major tragedy or issue that's happening somewhere in a distant country. You get to know that these are real people, they have real lives, they have real struggles, aspirations, they are people who are important, and they have faith in God, faith in Jesus and His Spirit. And just as I find inspiration, encouragement from the Scriptures, where we read about believers both in the Old Testament and the New Testament, people who endured difficult times, difficult struggles, and maintained their faith and their hope in Christ, I find also inspiration and encouragement from the way they live their lives, by the way they hold on to their faith and how they express their faith and try to live lives that are holy and acceptable to God. So I hope we were a blessing to them, and I know they were a blessing to us. Okay, thank you.